screaming with frustration and pain and anger and fucking desperation. I generally am very positive, but last year was really challenging. So it's the lowest I've probably ever been. If you try and push it down, the further you push it down, the harder it's going to bounce back up and it's going to smack you in the face, right? You can't push your feelings down, okay? Fear is not a stop sign. It's not the fear itself that's the problem. It's how you respond to that fear. I know this is hard, but life's hard. So what are you going to do about it, right? That's the brutal truth sometimes is that there is no magic wand, There's no self-help book. There's no amount of yoga or mindfulness, or talking therapy that is going to change how you feel. You just have to freaking get on with it. Just on a day-to-day basis, finding one thing I could do so that I kept putting one foot in front of the other. And sometimes it was just one foot. What can you do to create a tiny pocket of joy on a daily basis? There's certain things that have really helped me. One of the biggest things was the realization that
I'm on a mission to help the world to see success differently. We're sharing the stories of our guests. I hope to inspire those that listen. This is the Different Hats podcast, produced by H2 Productions. I hope you can join us on this journey.
Need a new van? Why not pop down to Rivervale in Brighton? Explore our range of new and used vans, lovingly prepared and ready to work just as hard as you do. Rivervale, making motoring manageable.
Okay, welcome to another episode of the podcast. I'm here today with a fabulous Charlotte Ricca.
Hello.
Charlotte, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
It's pretty interesting, isn't it? Because we obviously met recently on obviously a suicide prevention program, Assist, which was an amazing 2-day course, wasn't it? But connected really well and was like, people we know, we both sea swim, which is very cool. And then, it was so fascinating, obviously, looking into your work and obviously the stuff around success and sort of high performance and I was really excited to have you on. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. No, you're right. And we didn't we? Instantly, when you meet someone and you just instantly kind of click.
Yeah.
And I felt like we could have talked for hours. And here we are.
And here we are. We're going to talk for hours.
Well, I've seen the average length is like 2 hours.
Yeah, I do. I love a chat. I love it.
Clearly,
that's why I started the podcast, right? Let's get lovely people on that I can just sit and have a chat with, and I'm going to call this work, and that's okay.
Nice.
So I love it. But look, it's great to have you here, and we're gonna kick off as we have done with this series, right? With our sort of check-ins. So just, I guess, start of the year. We've recording this beginning of February, so January's out of the way. But just how are you landing today? What's as the year started? And I guess, Charlotte, are you all right, mate?
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Because part of me feels like, because this is in the public domain and because of my job, which is coaching and helping people, is that I need to go, I'm really great, I'm really good. And then also the realization is, but the whole point of what I do is people don't come to me when they're feeling really good. Yeah, they come to me when they're struggling with something, and I help them show that you can still move forward even when you're struggling. And so I just thought, the word authentic is overused, but unless I turn up authentically as myself and say, actually, this has been quite tough, but this is how I'm coping with it, that to me feels like a better response. So I would say, started the year incredibly excited, still am, so excited for my work. I've got a really good feeling about 2026 work-wise, but there's just been a few things I have found challenging, and I So I suppose it's even when coming to this kind of conversation, and it's a bit like, I don't know if you ever feel like this, Sam, if you're going to a social event and you're not feeling completely in the right headspace, that you kind of feel like you have to present a certain front in that social environment. And so coming here today, I feel like I have to present a certain front to be media worthy.
Yeah.
And actually the whole point is realizing that you don't always feel on, but can you still show up? Can you still be there even when you're not feeling your best? And that is basically kind of what I help people do, really, is still showing up when they're feeling a bit crap. And so this morning I was feeling quite stressed about various things. And then I took my dog for a very quick walk because I was trying to squeeze in loads of things, as always. And there was bird song, like really loud bird song, one particular bird. And I stopped and I was trying to find it. And it was just wonderful. And I just thought, okay, yeah. And I felt better. And I think that is the one thing I'm quite good at doing, is even in the sort of the stress of daily life, is finding, which we now call glimmers. Have you heard about these glimmers?
No, go on.
Yeah, it's we talk a lot about triggers. Well, there's things that's glimmers, which is on a daily basis, what joy can you find? And it's those glimmers that make what can sometimes be really challenging life, it kind of makes it okay, or makes it more than okay. And I think I'm very lucky. I'm blessed with being a half glass full person. Doesn't mean I don't kind of, struggle with, anxiety or feeling down, all those things. But I'm really good at glimmers. Sea swimming is one of them, right?
100%,
isn't it?
yeah.
I mean, it can make me cry with gratitude.
Yeah.
And then and it's a horrible, wet, cold February. Hooray! But isn't it? The weather's been diabolical, and I'm walking in the mud. I'm slipping everywhere, and I didn't wear the right shoes, so I've got cold feet. And I knew I had to get back to get my son to school, blah, blah, blah. And then I heard this bird song. And just that one little thing kind of just made me feel better. And it gives you a bit of perspective, and it let me step out of it being in my head and being super present. And I think that's one of the key things about being present. And so in a very long-winded way, right now, I'm feeling okay, but the start of this day was challenging. And this start of the year has been quite challenging. But I think what I'm good at doing is carrying on despite that and finding the glimmers.
I love that, finding the glimmer. We've done something with the work we're doing at the minute, and we went into a school recently, and one of the exercises we do with the kids is called Spot the Good, which is exactly along them lines, right? Because I think I really believe that giving kids them skills and tools at a young age to be able to do that. Because I don't think I'll go back when I was at school, gratitude it wasn't necessarily talked about.
No.
Do you know what I mean? It was just, obviously, well-being and mental health wasn't necessarily talked about as well, and feelings, emotions, and emotional literacy and all that. It just wasn't. And I think, but I would agree with you that we go through life. All of us at some point in life are going to face some form of adversity or some challenges, and some people more than others. But actually, life is tough, and at the moment it can be. It is quite tough with lots of stuff going on, cost of living, all what's going on in the world, America and everything.
Yeah.
So there's a lot going on in the world, right? And actually, just anyone listening, I guess that just taking it, if they take nothing away from this whole conversation, which I'm sure they're going to take lots, but even just that, just every day, trying to find a little glimmer.
And it is, and do you know what? I often say being happy is hard work.
Yeah.
And I am generally a positive person. I'm generally a half glass full person. And like people say to me, I wish I had so much energy. And it's like, do you know what? Some days I haven't got any energy. I feel so tired, but I think it's just, I know that getting in the water will make me feel better, or I know that walking my dog, and it's, and I think, again, it's a big part of what I do, is helping people to, you get so caught up in the negative, is to just stop and take a moment. And it is, it's gratitude, or it's glimmers, or whatever it is, but it's just having the ability on a daily basis, find your joy. And no matter how small it is, that can sometimes be the thing. And we talked about, this suicide prevention course you've been on, finding in a moment, one tiny source of something positive, something good, can be the difference between life and death sometimes. It's so important that we have the sometimes the bandwidth to look for the positive, but also the ability to think, I do have some control over this. If I can stop and think, and what is there right now in this moment? And it's a discipline, I think it is a discipline. And it's one thing I would say that is naturally part of my daily routine, is to find something. Marmite toast and a cup of tea. Like, that's my happy place. I can't explain how much. It's my desert island dish. I've thought about this. Do you know you'll have to take anything with your luxury? Yeah. My luxury is Marmite toast and tea. Like, seriously, don't talk to me before I've had my Marmite toast and tea. It makes me so happy. I mean, it's quite weird. Sometimes I go to bed and I'm looking forward to getting up in the morning so I can have Marmite toast and tea.
No, I'd have had some Marmite toast ready for us, and we could have had it.
I've had it.
I love that.
I've had it.
But it's something. One thing I'd love to know about, because I'm similar to you, but I've always been that positive guy, and glass half full, etc., etc. When, how do you combat, especially if people know you for that, right? So your friends and people you work with, whatever, will know you as that positive energy and all of that. When you maybe are not feeling great, how do you show up then? Are you okay still going to them people, or do you feel that you have to sometimes, they know me for this person, so I've got to show up as that? Can you allow yourself to show that other side? Or
yeah, I would say that it depends who I'm with. Really, really depends. And I would say I definitely feel pressure to be that person. And so saying, but I generally am very positive, but last year was really challenging. So career-wise, relationship-wise, children-wise, it was really challenging. And I would say it's the lowest I've probably ever been. And then I definitely felt like this isn't who I am. This isn't what people expect of me. And so I definitely became quite avoidant. So like, I'm normally, if I walk into a room, or look for eye contact, and I swim, I see the same people every day when I swim, and I would go into the changing room, I'd keep my head down, literally head down, no eye contact. I didn't want them to ask how I was, because I thought I'll cry. And I just I felt very, very protective of myself. And it was really odd, because it's just not me at all. Like, I can be an introvert, but ultimately I'm an extrovert. And so I found it really, really difficult. And then what I did then socially was I would then have a drink to try and give myself that, the person I thought I should be. And I know, because you don't drink now, Sam, do you?
No.
And so I've always, I'm a very moderate drinker, but I was basically then using it in a social situation to give me that boost, so I could then show up being shiny and sparkly, which is how I think people think I am. And it's a really interesting experiment I'm currently now doing is, maybe I'll give up booze, who knows? I didn't drink in January, and I must admit I felt much calmer, much less anxious. But I realised that actually, that having like a glass of wine at home I'm fine with, because that's why I feel comfortable and safe. It's the social drinking I think can be problematic. And I've spoken to lots of people about this, and it seemed quite common that if you're going to a party and you walk in, you instantly feel that anxiety. I'd be curious to know how, do you feel that? Do you get that?
Like now, it's really strange. Like I was always okay, social environments, no problem, walking in, but the whole not drinking thing has been so much easier than I thought. And I don't know whether that's because I've made that decision in my head to just go, I'm just not doing it. And it wasn't a thing, maybe on this occasion. So
yes.
I gave it no headspace.
Yeah.
So it was never a decision to make.
The headspace is exhausting.
Yeah.
The constant, should I or shouldn't I?
Yeah.
So it's a waste. It's a lot of energy we waste on, I'll only have 2 glasses. Or maybe I don't, it's like, man, if you just don't drink, you don't think about it.
And that's been the most beautiful thing for me, just the clarity it's given me. And the headspace that I haven't had to give. So I never felt like, and I'm going into especially I host events. I go again. I'm that similar to you, that larger than life go in, and you're that guy. And I thought my challenge for me last year was, can I still be that guy without having a drink? And I've never needed a drink. So I've never been quite a confident guy. I never was someone that I'm going to have a drink to make me feel like that person. but it always helped you in that environment. That's what you do, right? I've been doing it since I was 16 years old.
Yeah.
But for me, what I found is I can still be that guy. I could still be.
Was there a moment? Was there a pause? Was there like a gap between drinking Sam and sober Sam that you then had to navigate and work out and go, I'm still okay, I can still be Sam? Or did it feel easy?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I honestly think it felt quite easy. Because I tell you what it was, and I think it was I was in environments and people I'm having a year off. So it wasn't that, Sam's not drinking anymore. So Sam still has a drink and he's a drink. But you're having that year off, aren't you? So it was that social acceptance.
Well, it basically made it easier for everyone else.
Yeah.
Made everyone else feel comfortable.
Yeah. And it took me a long time. That took me a long time to get towards the end of last year where I started to say, I don't drink. Instead of going, no, I'm just having that year off. Oh yeah, of course you're having a year off. So it was all acceptable for me to say to them and for them to say to me. So I didn't feel, but now I'm what 400 odd days or whatever it has been now, I'm now would say I just don't drink now, and I'm a non-drinker.
But there's so much less stigma, isn't it? Even
massively.
Insane to even discuss the fact there might be stigma around drinking, which is just insanity, isn't it? But there is much less stigma, and I think most people will be curious or envious even.
Yeah. There is a lot of people who have said, I wish I could do it.
Yeah.
And I'm certainly, listen, I'm not preaching to anyone about it. It's not one of them things where I'm not. I've had some of the best times of my life having a drink, being out with mates and having a bet. I know that when I'm 70 years old, my group of pals who I grew up with, we will sit around a table and still laugh about things we've done when we were 16, 18, battered and being silly and having a great time. And that's an amazing experience. And I wouldn't, and I wonder, my only thing now is I wonder whether as I get older, am I still going to is there going to be those moments maybe? And I've had some great times this year, like over the last year. I've had some good nights out, but just different. Like it's just different, and I think that's the thing.
I think the one way of looking at it is, life is sort of in sections, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And so, how old are you now, Sam?
47.
Right. So, you did how many years of drinking did you do?
From 16, I started drinking, up till
so
46,
30 years, whatever, right?
Yeah.
Because then it's I can't honestly, my brain's
no,
not
you're
working.
right. Yeah, 30 years.
Yeah, right. So, and then this is, who knows? Maybe you'll do 20 years. Who knows? Maybe in your 70s, you might decide to have the off Guinness. Do you know what I mean? Mightn't you?
And it may even be next year. The way I feel right now, I kept saying to people last year, the way I feel, if you asked me today to make a decision, to never drink again, or it was an easy decision because I felt so good. I was like, I will never drink again, and I feel like that still today. I'm fine. I'm just, and I've still not put. Although I'm saying I don't drink anymore. I've not put a flag in the ground going, I'm never drinking anymore.
Yeah.
I might go on holiday this year somewhere, I might say I go and see my brother in Australia in January or Christmas, and he gets a bottle of wine out that we've just been to McLaren Vale Vineyard to get. I might have a glass of wine. I don't know. The way I feel, part of me at the moment is more of a how long can I go, because I feel so good on it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I honestly haven't, up until today, 400 that I haven't missed it. I've been to them events. I've been at the bar at 3:00 in the morning still, and then
that's amazing. So that's the difference. I think that a lot of people who give up drinking definitely are the ones that might have been the last at the bar are the first to go to bed now, because it's a bit like, well, it's a bit boring being sober. And so it's so funny. I've always been a moderate drinker. And my friends would consider me that. And then it was still not excessive, but I was using it in a different way. And that's what I didn't like.
Yeah.
I don't actually mind the idea of getting a bit drunk. I don't mind that. As long as I'm having fun, I'm doing it for the right reasons. I don't want to do it for the wrong reasons. And last year, for the first time in my life, I think I felt I was using it for the wrong reasons, because I was anxious. And so when I'd arrive at an event, and then I'd have a drink to kind of relax me or whatever. And then, you'd have a few to try and relax you. And then the next day I'd have massive anxiety, as I call it. So it's just there was no win-win. There was no fun. Do you know what I mean? And so what I've set myself the challenge now is it's okay to drink if it's fun and if it's nice. There's nothing wrong with that. But don't drink to mask what you're feeling. So if you turn up to an event and you're feeling uncomfortable, give it half an hour, because more often than not, within half an hour, you're feeling fine. If you're not feeling fine within half an hour, then go home. And this is giving myself permission to say, if you don't feel comfortable, don't be there. Don't stay, don't mask the emotions and be something that you're not in that moment by drinking. And so that is what I'm currently kind of, I guess, sort of playing with, experimenting with. And so if I'm at home and I feel nice and safe, surrounded by people I love, I can easily have a glass of wine. I don't think, oh my God, I better have more. Whereas in a social environment, it got to the point where it didn't feel like I was drinking for the pleasure of the drink. I felt like I was drinking to mask discomfort. And this is something that so much of the work I do is about being comfortable with being uncomfortable. So much of it is because it's no one likes that. And so how do we avoid it? And so some people, we all avoid it by working too hard or over exercising or alcohol, or there's things that we do to avoid the discomfort. And I realized that in one part of my life, that's what I was doing. And I thought, actually, doesn't sit well. We talk about our values, about the massive part of me is honesty. And it didn't feel like I was being honest with myself. With myself. And I was trying to turn on fun, Charlotte. And I just thought, well, if I'm not feeling fun, just go home. And then think about why you're not feeling fun. Why aren't you feeling fun? And so it feels like it's been brilliant. And I was away last week on holiday. And so that was the first time in January. And I did have some drinks. It was incredibly moderate. And it felt if drinking can ever be healthy. Do you know what I mean? It felt like, oh, I'm in the mountains. I'm having a nice glass of wine. I'm having a cold beer. And didn't get drunk once. And I'm like, okay. And I've come home and I'm not drinking again. So that feels
because initially maybe there's a shift. Yeah, it's a relationship, isn't it? I think that's the thing. Like, it's that relationship with alcohol and I think that's for me. I've changed my relationship with alcohol forever, whatever that means. Not that I'm never going to drink. I'm just keen to with that. What was the shift for you? I guess because you're saying obviously some challenging times last year, and then you was going to that and drinking. But what was there a shift that you did speak out, or you spoke to people more about what you was masking, or
no, I don't. I'm trying to think. Not really. I spoke to my boyfriend about it, and he was initially surprised that because he always considers me like incredibly moderate drinker, that I then said actually kind of been masking how I'm feeling, and even to the point sometimes even with him, we had a bit of a challenging time, and even sometimes with him I would do it because I didn't feel comfortable with what I was feeling and I didn't know how to process it. And so it's like if I have a glass of wine, I haven't got to process it, And it's just been, and what I love so much about my job is that we're never a finished product ever, are we? Never. And God, if someone thinks they're a finished product, Jesus, they're a narcissist, So, and I love the fact that I'm constantly working and improving and failing, and this is like last year was like, okay, that was a tough year, and I think I was using alcohol as a crutch, and I don't want to be that person, and so I've addressed it and I'm working through it, and and whatever happens this year, good or bad, I feel really positive about this year. I know that I don't want to use that as a way of avoiding discomfort. I really want to learn to, and I am getting better at really sitting with it and then working out why I'm feeling uncomfortable.
Yeah. There's a thing I've used in a couple of posts recently. Chris Williamson said it. I think it was the answers we're looking for in the silence we're avoiding. And for the first time last year, for me, like challenging and stuff as well, I found that sitting on my own was really uncomfortable. I would I'd distract myself. Well, it's very similar, I think, like that positive mindset, and you distract yourself with stuff, whether it be drinking, whether it be, working or going out and doing all them things we're doing. But actually sitting there in silence on your own and really feeling and processing emotion was fucking the hardest thing to do, right? But I wonder, like, for people listening, I'm trying to think of like stuff. I know for me, I felt like I had to sit with those feelings. I had to process them. I did come out the other side by really done some breath work and other stuff. But was there was there some things you started to put in place? Because obviously, from your point of view, like you said, we spoke a little bit offline. You help other people, right? Who are maybe struggling and getting through that. And sometimes it's the hardest when we're giving advice to people, but to actually do it on ourselves. What did you? Was there some stuff that you started to do to help you through that?
Yeah, it's funny. It's a funny story. So I met with a friend recently, and I was talking about. I think I was talking about stuff I've been doing with clients and talking about stuff I was going through. And she said, when I was talking about what I do, she's like, "Do you ever do this shit on yourself?" And I was like, "Oh, a little bit." She went, "Imagine how fucking amazing you'd be if you did it on yourself." I was like,
listen to our own advice.
I know, exactly. And so you kind of feel like, don't you, that when someone comes to me, that I am, that I am together and sorted and wise but also the whole point is it's only by being flawed and being human and working it out that you can then go, kind of, this is, this works, and I'm sort of living proof of it. And so, and also, again, the idea that your therapist is flawless is so wrong. It's so wrong. And I know we've spoken before about how much should one reveal of oneself. And I know that, I train with the British Psychology Society, and that ethics is so strong there. And I know that a lot of people in that environment, they give away nothing of themselves. They're a blank slate. And the idea, in a way, is that they just reflect back with the person in front of them. That's all they do. They help that person see themselves, and they are a blank slate. And that isn't really my approach. And obviously, I never make it about me ever. But it doesn't mean that I can't show some of myself in the way that I react to them and behave to them, and also, sometimes I can challenge them and make them. What I love about my job is helping people see things differently. I'm innately incredibly curious. I've now forgotten the question you even asked me.
But saying, I guess, from exactly that, like the bits for you, like. Yeah.
Go on. How much do I use on my...
Yeah.
Is that what you're
yourself.
saying?
Yeah. So, like, because you're giving advice to other people, but exactly that, like, what do you use on yourself? How do you...
Yeah. So basically, I would say that one of the main reasons I trained in the first place, sports psychology is how I started, was because of my career competing. I've ridden horses all my life, and how I struggled with my mindset. Negative self-talk was chronic. And so what I wanted to do was kind of learn for myself and then help other people. And I would say that there are some things that I do that, in terms of when I competed, were just changed massively, and some stuff I still don't do enough of. And we talked about breath work, something I've come to really recently, and I'm still kind of doing it daily, but there's certain things that have really helped me. One of the biggest things was the realization that nerves are normal. That's like being the most biggest thing for me. So just in terms of competing, when I had to compete, I would turn up and I would feel nervous, and I would just think, I'm so nervous, I shouldn't even be here. Like, there's, because I'm so nervous, I don't belong here, because look at everyone else around me and how confident they are. And if they turn up with their massive horse boxes and their flashy horses, and I had a shitty little trailer behind a Honda CRV. Like, I kind of quite like the fact that, and I had a horse that looked like a pony, and I'd rock up, and then actually my horse was amazing, and we'd come in and kind of sometimes win, and it was brilliant because we'd turn up and kind of looking like,
the underdog story.
Yeah, literally looking like we didn't belong. But I would turn up and think, I'm nervous. Like, what am I even doing here? I don't belong here because I'm so nervous. And then I'd create a whole narrative around being nervous, which was, you shouldn't even be here. Like, you don't belong. And if you're this nervous, that means you're not ready. And the realization was, fear is not a stop sign. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't be there. What it means is you care passionately and you care deeply about something. And, I often say pressure is a privilege. So it's not the fear itself that's the problem. It's how you respond to that fear. So it's like, it's like metacognition. It's like you're kind of worrying about worry. That's what I would do. Instead of going, I'm feeling a bit nervous. That's because I'm excited. One thing I would do, I would just shift it and say, I'm not nervous, I'm excited. I'm excited to be here. It's an amazing opportunity. I've done all the training. Bring it on. And this is my body. This is where my body getting ready. And that was a massive shift for me, so that when I felt those nerves, I didn't think it made me inferior, and I didn't think it meant that I didn't belong. It meant that I really, really care, which is a positive.
There's so much there for me. I'm one of the things that we're trying to teach in schools is emotional literacy. But all what you're saying there, how many of those skills and the stuff that you're teaching other people now and what you've learned and that we could teach young children, right? Like how impactful that could be for life in general, right? If we was to because I think that one of the things for me, my understanding, exactly how you sort of just described it regarding emotions, is understanding that anxiety and fear can feel similar to excitement and stuff. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Like so I say to people, think of something that like a roller coaster. And say to kids, like, or going to see, I don't know, Harry Styles in a concert. Do you know what I mean, right? What is your what's your physiological response? And it could be sweaty palms, elevated heart rate, shortness of breath. On a roller coaster, you feel terrified and it's amazing, right? And it's exactly the same thing, but you tell yourself, this is, I'm scared and this is bloody awful. And it's the same thing. It's the same physiological response. It's just the way you interpret that physiological response that matters. And so and I work with quite a lot of teenagers, and often it's the parents who are really anxious about their kid's anxiety. And they're saying, she gets so nervous and we just wish she wasn't. And so the child then is like, oh my God, I mustn't be nervous because that makes my parents stressed, rather than going, it's completely fine. Of course you're nervous. This is really important. It matters.
And it's just I wonder about that. Just giving them the tools and the skills at that young age to be able to recognise. I think that's the hard, because even as adults, we're still trying to recognise those emotions. Like I've gone on a journey with trying to recognise what emotions am I really feeling there. But I remember speaking to, there was a woman called Paula Reed who come on, and she often talked about I think she bought South Pole and an adventure, done loads of amazing stuff, climb Everest and stuff. And she would talk about your comfort zone and your stretch zone, and in that stretch zone we don't spend much time there, but we should spend the majority of time there, because that's where those feelings are. Anxiety,
totally,
but excitement and all of those mixture of emotion. You can have all of these different emotions in that area, and that's where we should constantly be pushing ourselves. But I love what you mentioned there about just reframing it in your head of what it is, like you said, like to be excited about it.
I'm excited. And the thing is, you don't want to be constantly stressing yourself. It's exhausting. But equally, and also, do you know what? Some people will stay in their comfort zone, and that's okay. Everyone can't be climbing Mount Everest. We need people, like society needs people that want to stay in their comfort zones, that are happy not to push boundaries, that want to stay in the town where they grew up in, that want the job that is minimum stress, right? Because we can't have, everyone can't be high achievers, everyone can't be the CEO. You need someone's going to clean the floor, So it's okay to be comfortable with not pushing yourself, as long as you're okay.
Because that's the narrative as well, isn't it? That maybe social media especially sort of portrays that actually it's not okay to just settle and go, no, I'm okay doing this. Because you've got to be productive. We can 24 hours in a day, right? We can do and do. And I think, I don't know what you think about that, but about the feeling of just being, just stopping, but I think that's the sitting in silence and not doing anything and not feeling that I've got to be productive all the time. But there's a narrative out there. There's the comparison narrative that we constantly got to push ourselves.
Totally, and we reward it. It's like, oh my God, I'm so busy. Oh my God, this week if someone said, I'm not really doing anything this week, I got out of bed at 12, watched a bit of TV, went back to bed, we would just think that we were depressed, or wouldn't you know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%.
Wouldn't we? Whereas if I like, oh my God, I was up at 6, and I went for a run, and then I did that and that, and you're like, wow, look at that. And actually, again, if it makes you happy, then brilliant. But we reward hard work, and we are slightly sneery about those that seem to take it easy.
Yeah. And why is it? Because we're in a capitalist society that we should be achieving, which I think it's that word "should." I keep hearing that, and there's that narrative, and especially when we talk about mental health or struggles with suicide, especially, right? It's that the feelings of worthless and useless come from the feeling of I should be here or I should be doing this, right? Like, again, there is something in that narrative for me it's hard, isn't it? That's why I think balance has become one of the pillars of success that I've sort of established from all these conversations, because actually, like, we shouldn't always be, because we can't always be present. If we're always striving for something in the future, we can't be present. Presence is another one of the things, and actually, like, that's what life surely is all about, being present. Doesn't mean.
Yeah, well, it's really interesting. Actually, there's this thing. It's called the hedonic treadmill, okay. Right? So, and there's other ways, I can't remember the other terms for it now, but essentially what it is, it's the idea of what happens is we strive for something and we reach it, and then we feel happy. It doesn't last, does it? And you get back to your baseline level again. And so it's just called this hedonic treadmill, because you're constantly chasing pleasure, but you always turn to your baseline. And there was really interesting research that showed that people that won the lottery within 18 months return back to the same level of happiness that they were. And I remember interviewing an event rider once, and she said that the pleasure of winning lasts as long as the bubbles in your champagne glass, because it's what next. And that is what we are definitely, and it's partly how we survived and evolved, isn't it? Because we're always striving to improve ourselves. But the antidote to this is gratitude. And again, there's loads of studies around that it's okay to be striving, but if you think that reaching that goal is going to make you happy, chances are it isn't. You'll get that, that gold medal, or you'll get that, that new career or promotion, and you will feel, or the new house or the new car or the new girlfriend, and then you'll feel happy, and then you'll return to your base level. Whatever your base level is, that's where you're going to return to. And so that's when the daily gratitude becomes really, really important, because no matter how much money you've got or how much success, winning medals, etc., it's the daily gratitude that is the difference between being kind of content and not.
Because there was a conversation I had with, what came out of the 100, one list, like collective definition of success. One of the things was the ongoing pursuit of fulfillment, which really landed. Like when I released this a year ago, I released the episode, and that was what came out of it. And I was like, oh, it really feels great. Like, but actually, I sat here with Sarah Willingham, who just bought the R36. She was at Dragon's Den and stuff, and I sat opposite her. She was talking about a friend of hers who, she said, he just got life. Like, he just understood life. Like, he died, unfortunately, but he just understood what life. And she said, I used to wind him up, and I'd bring him up and go, oh, what are you doing today? Polishing your basil leaves or something. Do you know what I mean? Because he lived every day in the moment as much. And he said, look, and again, back to that balance, we can't spend every day polishing our basil leaves, right? There's often things we live in the capitalist side, got to be able, but surely that's where that balance has got to become, right? Because maybe, because she said he wasn't, when he was polishing his basil leaves, he wasn't on the pursuit of fulfillment. He was just there in that moment, and I think that's where that balance for me has got to come in. Right, we've got to. Yes, it's great to strive and be. I'm more ambitious today than I've ever been.
Yeah,
right? More ambitious. Yeah. But at the same time, I'm trying to go. But remember, right here today, and again, back to, I suppose, we get this similarly from the sea. It forces you to be present, right? Because it's fucking cold.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So it really is, and it is that being so in the moment. And I think it's really important that you find something. It's funny that one of the clients he refers to it as the Cordoba. Was it the Cordoba conundrum? Which basically, Cordoba is a place in Spain he goes to, and he said when he goes there, he completely relaxes, and he feels happy, and he comes back, and all it goes. And he was saying, kind of, he fantasized about living there. Moving there, then you realise if you moved there, it would no longer be an escape, would it? It would no longer be the paradise. It would become a bit like that again. The hedonic treadmill, is like you go there and you're like, oh, this is it. Oh my God, I'm living the dream, and then life would catch up with you and it become normal again. So it's like, how do you, the things that make you happy, like being on holiday, whatever it is, how can you kind of bottle that and have a tiny sip of it on a daily basis? And it could just be that there might be a really beautiful square that they sit in and have a cup of coffee. And it's like, okay, well, how can I replicate that with me. Okay, my mom might toast and tea. Do you know what I mean? It's like there's rituals. What can you do to create a tiny pocket of joy on a daily basis? And again, it does take some effort, but it's so worth it. And I would say, I often say to people, find something that you can do on a daily basis. So, people meditate, right? So everyone has it's like your form of meditation. It's something that brings you calm and joy that you can replicate on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. That just gives you that tiny bit of space away from the pursuit and the pressures of life. And for me, again, I've had horses all my life, and that is, I literally get on the horse and I kind of go, sometimes literally, I see the ears in front of me, and it's my happy place. And I've got the sea as my happy place. I'm really lucky. I have a lot of happy places. I know I am so lucky, but I also want to caveat that with, I was at the stables this morning at 6:30 in the dark, in the cold, in the wet, in the mud. It's hard work. Mm. And also the horse is lame at the moment. I'm not even riding. It's hard work. And so people from the outside looking in will someone say to me, like, how do you fit it all in? This is making me sound like a humble brag. It's not meant to be. No. What I'm saying is I work hard at creating daily joy. And I am I'm pretty ruthless in making sure I have that. And I think that can make me selfish. And I think a lot of mums would struggle to be as selfish as I am in ensuring I have my daily joy.
But is that that's really interesting, because is that selfish for you to become the best version of yourself? Right?
Yeah,
you need those bits of, like we've just all what we've just talked about around finding little bits of joy. You've got some of them with sea swimming, with the horses. Is it selfish for you to even as a parent? I'm a parent. Even as a parent, should it? Is that selfish for me to take that time out?
No. And I would say, again, I definitely think it isn't. And I definitely, compared to, their dad, who I divorced from, love dearly, massive respect for him. We are very, very different people in terms of he's half, glass half empty and I'm half glass full. And definitely I would say that I show up in a more engaged, positive way because of the things that I do. Like I'm up at the crack of dawn, whether it's doing the horse or the riding. But it sometimes means that, I'm back. I've done that recently. I've got back from swimming and my son's in bed and he's late for school because I wasn't there to get him up. I'm also like, man, you're 15, get out of bed.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Accountability.
No, and then his dad even said to me, I was thinking, something like that, maybe you should swim at a different time so you can be there to wake him up. And I was like, I'm not missing out on my swimming. Like, no, just this, I'm not missing out on swimming to make sure do you know what I mean?
100%. But have you? Because I've really struggled with that over the years. Again, we talked about people pleasing and stuff, and I would always put others before. Like, you go and have a massage, or you go and do that, or kids have got to come first, and da da da. But I think I listened to Jay Shetty talk about it and he was saying about the most important person has got to be yourself above everyone else. Because you are someone, I would have always gone the kids, and then my mum, and then my wife, then my mum and dad, and then brother, and then I'm down there right at the bottom somewhere. But actually, if we do put ourselves, I don't think it is self. I'm learning that, but it's not selfish to put myself, because if I do that, what you're doing, I'll become the best version.
You do.
Best version of myself for them.
There's definitely ways of doing it that you can still be then present for your kids, etc.
Yeah, of course.
And I do know that part of my thing is hyper-focus, and I do get locked into stuff, and that can be at the detriment to others around me, 100%. I get so locked in on the task that I'm often not present for those around me. And that I know that's part of my, so much talk about ADHD these days, isn't there? But, I'm not diagnosed, but my supervisor was very clearly told me she's pretty sure.
May have some traits that...
Yeah. He said, have you thought about getting diagnosed? And then she said, have you thought about medicating? I was like, anyway. But so I know that I do get locked in on stuff, and that can be a detriment to others. But I do totally agree with generally by doing the stuff that makes me happy, I am a better person to be around. And I'm, and I do believe that. And I think that, I hate to make things too gendered, but I think that typically lots of women I know, very few have got hobbies. Very few have got hobbies. Maybe going to the gym might be a hobby, or running. Do you know what I mean? But actually, how many play sport, or, and traditionally it was the guy on the golf course, wasn't it? And my ex-husband used to joke about, say he was a horse. You've heard the expression about golf widower? He would say he was a horse widow because, I was always riding. So there is an element, that's about the selfish bit of, I would be absent because I was riding, but I would come home buzzing in a really good mood. And I think a big part of this is sometimes this feeling of self-worth and whether you feel you deserve it or not. And so I would say that I would still do these things and then feel massively guilty afterwards, So I would ruthlessly do it and make sure no matter what. When I had tiny babies, I remember my sister reminded me of this. It was my first or second child, I'm not sure. And they wouldn't take a bottle. I was trying to wean them onto a bottle so I could then go to work or go riding, all these things. And they flatly refused to take a bottle. So I remember giving my baby to my sister so I could have a ride. And she reminded me that I was tacking up, and I got on and I was crying because I was leaving my crying baby in the arms of my sister who wouldn't take a bottle. And I was crying, but I was, again, that was that thing of dog. I knew that in the long run, it was good for me. And I knew that it would make me a happier, better mum in the long run. But in that moment, it was brutal. And I think probably a lot of people might have gone, do you know what, it's not worth it. And then they might have got rid of the horse because the baby's screaming at you for your boob, and your body's responding. And you're saying, no, I'm not, just for an hour, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do this for me. And I was crying about doing it. And I still ride now, 18 years later, I still ride.
I can only imagine how many, not parents in general, but mothers especially, I suppose, like that guilt. Right? Like, what advice can you give to someone like listening? Because some people could listen. Oh, yeah, it's all right to say that, but I haven't got the time to go and do that or whatever. But actually, I think one of the key things, just taking from what you've said a couple of times, is prioritising it. How important it is to prioritise, and it's so, especially when you've got young kids, right, babies crying and stuff like that. But just the benefits of that advice to go, just even if you carve out a little bit of time, that it's not selfish, but there's that. Again, I've never been diagnosed with ADHD, but again, some similar traits. So I'm going to ask a question in a minute because I'll keep going all over the place. But there's a couple of things. One, how do you, to get rid of that guilt and not feel guilty? What is there anything that advice you can give to not feel that way?
I think, again, it's that thing of, a big part of what I talk about is you can't suppress feelings, okay? So big part of my approach is acceptance commitment therapy. And what it is you have, and a massive part of that is acceptance of the feelings. Because if you try and push off, I say it's like being in a swimming pool with a inflatable ball, right? If you try and push it down, the further you push it down, the harder it's going to bounce back up and it's going to smack you in the face, right? You can't push your feelings down, okay? If you try and suppress them, they're going to bite you on the arse or hit you in the face. So I wouldn't ever say you don't want to deny those feelings of guilt, but you can keep moving forward. That's the commitment, right? So I accept that I'm feeling really guilty, but what are my values? What's important to me? And I'm going to commit to that. So for me, one of my values absolutely is, is freedom, okay? Is exercise, is fun, is pleasure. My values, in fact, I even did it again. I will do it on myself really regularly to work out what my values are because it's a massive part of what I do with my clients. And, I feel like, they're kind of evolving, I guess, but the really core thing for me, for my values, is basically being challenged, and is pleasure, basically. You know what I mean? That is really important. Fun is really important. And so for me, knowing that I'm going to feel guilty, but I'm still going to take a step towards which is really important to me. And that is horse riding. I've done it since I was 4 years old, And so, and And it was painful, but I did it. And then I did love the ride. And my daughter stopped crying. And even if she didn't stop crying, it's not going to kill her to cry. Do you know what I mean? She's in the arms of her auntie. She's safe. She's okay. Let her cry. It's okay. I can still do what I've got to do. And I think that a big part of why, and I do work with clients who struggle with feeling they deserve any pleasure or any enjoyment, you know, they really struggle with that. And so because they think they don't deserve it, they then don't pursue the things that matter to them. And then how does that help anyone? Doesn't help themselves, doesn't help people around them. You know, they're not living a healthy life. And it's that thing of, if you're not living in line with your values, it doesn't make you the best version of yourself. And you'll be a shell of yourself, and you might be there for your child, but who are you? As you know, who are you really? And I think it's really, I also think it's been really great for my kids, my daughter particularly, to see me super passionate about stuff. You know, I'm really active. You know, I love looking after myself. I love my work, and I'm busy, and I like them seeing that I'm not just mum, I'm Charlotte. And I think that's really important.
I've 100%. I think that's such an important narrative as well. Like I've spoken to Kelly about my ex-wife. Like she will feel so much guilt when she's doing. But I'm like she's just become a judge, and I'm like, that's an amazing thing. And she's guilty sometimes. She has to go away and travel and stuff like that. But there's something like so much of what you said. Like for me, I say to her, look how inspiring it is for them kids to see that, right? To see you going and following your dreams and doing that. So back to you, like to see, like if there's one thing for me that I want the kids to see is that I'm passionate about stuff, that I'm living in alignment with my values, I'm doing that, and that gives them permission to do it. That's what I think, like what you I'm assuming you've achieved by doing that as well, is giving them permission to, because we don't lose, I think, we get that word identity you mentioned there. There's so much we get wrapped up in our identity. So, you know, what, I'm an entrepreneur or a businessman or, you know, I'm a father, and we can get wrapped up in those identities. But back to values, like when we live in alignment with our values, that's the benchmark of what our identity is, not put on a title. Or because what happens when the kids, you're always going to be a mum, and I'm always going to be a father, but actually when they're up and they've got their own lives as well, like if you've just put everything on that identity, then you lose yourself a little bit.
Exactly. And so there's two things with that. First of all, the interesting thing about empty nest syndrome. And I must admit, I feel awful sometimes. I think I'm going to be all right. Like, do you know what I mean? Is that okay? Like my friends were saying, their kids have gone to uni and they're bereft. And I was kind of going, I think I'm going to be okay. I mean, maybe I'm not, you know, maybe I'm not. But also the difference also, you know, I'm divorced, and my kids actually spend half the week with their dad. So I've done the prep. Do you know what I mean? So I'm used to my kids not being there. I remember when they first got divorced, and the nights they weren't there, it was grim. I didn't ever want to be at home, ever. I was out all the time, because it made me so sad to be home alone. Now I bloody love being home alone. I mean, I love it. So I would say that the empty nest syndrome thing, I think, is true. It can be a degree of, because everything's about the kids. And when the kids are gone, they realization. And also, you know, a lot of couples get divorced when the kids leave home, because they look at each other and go, I've got nothing in common with you, because their lives have been around the children rather than maybe nurturing that relationship, which is really important. And another thing that really happens in sport is, if their whole identity is with being a footballer, for example, if for whatever reason that doesn't go to plan, they're you know, they're subbed off, or they're injured, you know, who am I if they're only a footballer? So a massive part of my work is saying, who are you beyond your sport? Because you have to. And actually, there's research has proven that those that have other activities outside their profession or their hobby, they play better, you know. So it's, your identity can't be one thing, because if that one thing doesn't pan out, you know, then you're kind of screwed. And it's funny, we talk about, you know, what does success mean? And generally to athletes, like, there's nothing more, you know, there's definite KPIs in sport, isn't there?
Yeah, of course,
winning or losing. Do you know what I mean? It's totally measurable, isn't it? How many times have you won? How many PBs have you got? It's very measurable. But success in sport, it shouldn't be that binary. And if it is that binary, that is when things fall apart, when the wheel falls off. Because if you're in a race and suddenly you look at your watch, I'm not going to get my PB. Well, what do? Do you just give up? Do you go home? I've had some clients and they have been in a race and they realise they're not gonna medal or not, not, they've thrown their bike on the floor in disgust and walked off because they're like, so it's like, you can't, you can't, where is the joy in that?
Yeah.
There's no joy. And so what you need is success has to be redefined into it's how you show up. It's how you, sometimes your success can even be, today I'm going to play and I'm going to see how much I can smile and enjoy it. That's my challenge. So it has to be, you have to measure success in so many different ways than just your PB or where you position, because you can't control that. You can't. And that's when the anxiety really kicks in, because there's nothing you control in that, right? But what can you control? You can't control the weather or your opponents. You can't control the pitch conditions. There's so many things. But what you can control is how you show up, your mental attitude, your preparation, the people you surround yourself with, the conversations you have before. These are things you can control. And it's by being super focused on those things that all of a sudden that end, that PB or that medal, that, we know that's what you want, but forget about that because you can't control it. What can you do right now that is going to help you have the best experience? And chances are, if you have the best experience and you've done the training, you're probably going to get your PB.
Wow. Yeah, often there's loads of cliches that I could do, like the journey and it's the journey and not the destination. But it's so they're cliches because they're true, but it's so important. I'm keen then with that though. What we talked about success there, but how for you? How do you define it? What's success to you?
Well, so I was away last week and I was snowboarding, which in itself that sounds like, oh, she's very successful. And a caveat that it's the second time I've been in 15 years because it's expensive. I had kids and blah blah, and also I have had horses all my life. I'm not exactly poor little Charlotte. I've done all right, but certain priorities, right? Priorities, passion, purpose, priorities. And so I hadn't been in years. I went for a week. I went with university friends who are all very successful. So one of them has got his own...
What?
Okay, well, I'll explain this level of success, right?
Yeah.
So one of them has got his own clothing brand and he is a TV presenter, okay? He's been on Desert Island Discs. I think we can class that as success, can't we?
Yeah.
The other guy retired at 45. He's a multi-millionaire. He sold his business. It's proper, he's not like a posh privileged guy, right? He's a, normal guy from Birmingham, super smart idea, sold his business, he's 45. I think we can consider that success, can we?
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
We'll go with that.
Yeah.
We'll go with that.
Another friend, he's a pilot, right? I knew him at university when he was a total stoner. And he basically said, he decided that he wanted to be a pilot and he wanted to do like air search and rescue. And I lived with him in Peckham, in a house in Peckham with my then boyfriend and this guy, Dave. And he just said, I'm going to be an airline pilot. And he got the money and he sent himself, he did all the training and he is now, search and rescue, living the dream, right? Success. So, and they, as a result of their hard work, they have all got decent money. They've got good pensions. I haven't got a pension. They go snowboarding or skiing at least twice a year. They are successful. And I definitely started thinking, oh man, God. I even started questioning my parenting abilities because they just seem to be spending loads of quality time with their kids because they could afford to take time off work or they'd retired from work. And I definitely thought, God, I don't spend that much time with my kids. I've never taken my kids skiing. Oh God, And then I haven't got a pension, and they're just super successful. And that's in that week away, success to me became defined by career status and money. Can I also say they're also really happy, right? They're happy and they're really nice guys. Like, I'm not saying but that became the measure of success in that week. And then I have to think about my life and the choices I've made and why I'm at where I'm at is because I pretty much, my career has always taken second place. Again, talk about me being ruthless in my pursuit of pleasure. I've had horses all my life. And early 20s, got made redundant. I worked for Dennis Publishing. The magazine shut down, got made redundant. I straight away just thought I'm going freelance. So I had a bit of redundancy money and I went freelance. And I set up I was a freelance journalist all my life. And that was so I could ride horses. And I had a really successful career as a freelance journalist. If I'd stayed on a magazine or a paper, I could have made my way up, right? I could have been editor, who knows? But I was just a gun for hire. I was just a freelance journalist. That's what I've always done. And then I did a bit of content marketing because journalism got tougher and I had, decent, good clients as content marketing. I set up a podcast company. This is way before we used to do video. It's just much easier those days. I set up a podcast company. So I'm pretty good at pivoting. And what I realized was throughout all of this is I've always prioritized horses. And then I had kids. So horses and kids and swimming. And so I guess for me, success has always been about the kind of my personal pursuits and rather than my career. And as a result, I've never been editor of a big title, I haven't got a pension. That's not great. But I just have, I kind of know I'm going to be okay. I know I am. So I think success is, for me, I've realized, is just about day to day doing the things I love. That's it. And I would say pretty much on a daily basis, I do the things I love.
I just wanted to take a moment to talk about one of our sponsors, Nostos, an authentic experience of Greece right here in the heart of Hove. In a world brimming with dining options, finding that one place that captivates your palate and heart isn't always easy. It's about more than food. It's the stories, the ambience, the slice of another world. This is the essence of Nostos, an award-winning Greek restaurant. With traditional recipes passed down through generations, each dish promises a story and a piece of heritage. And Nostos is more than just a restaurant, it's a community contributor. Each dining experience supports initiatives close to their heart, from local charities to cultural events, enriching Brighton and Hove's social fabric. They also provide catering services, bringing Greek cuisine to your personal events. For a taste of Greece without leaving town, visit nostos-hove.co.uk. And when you do go, say Sam recommended the feta nests. Oh my God, they are amazing.
Wow. But I haven't got a pension.
You and me both. But oh God, wow. But surely then, and I'm not saying, because I always, listen, I've done nearly 140 episodes talking to people about how they define successful and what it means, and sometimes the narrative I put out there may come across that you go, money, financial wealth and stuff is seen as a negative thing, which it can be for some, but it's not, right? Like you said, you give examples of 3 people that are genuinely happy and content with life and have achieved all them things as well, so you can have all of those things, right? Amazing. And I know that how important money is, because the lack of it is what sometimes keeps you up at night, right? So
yeah, money is important. I mean, it is. It gives you a certain freedom to do the stuff you want to do.
Yeah. But the caveat with that is the fact that we can, again, back to right at the start of the conversation, looking at the glimmers, right? Looking at the glimmer, and actually then you're leading on, coming full circle, leading to your definition of coming, just want to get up every day and do the things I love. And we can't, look, the reality of life is sometimes we can't always get up and do everything we want to do every day, because we've got to, sometimes it's people going, I've just got to go and to a job that I don't really like, just so I can get some money, but I can do the things I love doing, and maybe that's okay. But if you can try and do something that you love doing for work that will pay some bills, mate, as long as it pays some bills, and you can still, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we can still maintain, and you can do the things that you love doing as well.
Yeah.
On the side of that, maybe that's real. Is that real success? Is that and it depends on what measure we put it on that.
Yeah, but it's also I'm not. I come from a position of privilege. I feel very privileged. Not like I say, not everyone has a job they love, right? But again, and the thing for me, it's been about pivoting, and I think I've always been pretty good at realizing. So journalism, AI is eating it, right? It's a tough industry, and then content marketing probably even more so than I'd say content marketing even more so than journalism. I think people in journalism, people still want the human word. They really want the human connection. Whereas in content marketing, man, you can just you can get a LinkedIn post or an email out of AI, can't you? Not saying you should, but you definitely a lot of companies use it, right?
Of course.
So, and that's one of the reasons why I retrained as a psychologist, was the realization that I'm going to be working into my 70s. I love working, but can I still be a journalist in my 60s or 70s? I doubt it, really. Commissioning editors, they ain't getting any younger, and I'm just getting older. So so it's that thing about passion, purpose, priorities. I always say that. And so for me, my passion's always been what makes us tick. As a journalist, I was innately curious. That was always what I wanted to know. And so I was a sports journalist for quite a while, and all I wanted to know was how do you cope with performance anxiety? That was because I'd struggled with it so much as a child and into my adulthood. And so I just thought, I'm always asking about it, so why not retrain? So that's why I went back to uni and to become a sports psychologist. And so, and I've cost me tens of thousands of pounds to retrain, right? And I haven't paid that money back yet. So again, I don't, I know I'm privileged. I'm very lucky, but I also work my frigging ass off, and I continue to do so. And and I live in a certain financial state that not everyone could deal with. Do you know what I mean? That uncertainty. Some people would rather take the job. I remember I was offered a job a year or so ago for a company that I was working freelance for, and they offered me a job, and I thought, I'm never in a million years going to work for you. And the money was all right. It was pretty crap. And then 6 months later, I was thinking, man, I should have taken that job because it was guaranteed income. And a friend of mine couldn't believe I didn't take the job because it's financial security. But I was like, I'm just no way I'm going to take that job. I'm going to be okay. Then I had 6 months of really not being okay, very stressful. But I have, and I've chipped away and chipped away and chipped away. Even in my darkest moments, I just kept chipping away because I kind of knew that this was what I was meant to do. This was my passion and my purpose. And the priorities was trying to earn money. That was, at that point, that was the most challenging bit. You talk about that, the hierarchy of needs. It's really, really hard. Self-actualization, it's hard to be your best self if you're worrying about paying the bills. And that's what I was doing. It was really tough. And
but what got you through that from a mindset point? Again, I'm trying to, for people listening, and because I really resonate with this because I still have them feeling now, right? You go, like, where am I going to get? Am I going to pay that invoice? Where am I going to pay? And I mean, so there's that struggle, and that can take you again into a spiral, and you go into some dark. It takes you into some dark places. The lack. That's why I say money is important, because the lack of it sometimes takes you into them. Can take you into those spaces when you're worrying about that. But what, like, from a mindset, what got you through those periods?
I think so. I remember I went through a spate of applying for jobs because I'd never had not so my 20s had a proper job, and so I went through a spate of applying for jobs, and I nearly got a lot of jobs. I got a lot of interviews, and I applied for a job of the Wellbeing Performance Lead with the Women's Super League, which would have been football, which would have been insane. It was a 3-hour interview at Wembley Stadium, and I loved every second of it. Like, I was like, bring on the pressure. I talk about that time when. So there's a thing. It's called being at a challenge state or threat mindset. Okay, and you can have the same fear. But if you're in a challenge mindset, you've got the skills to do it. So it's just exciting. You're nervous, but you're like, bring it on, I can do it. If you're in a threat mindset, rather than thinking, I hope I win, you're thinking, I hope I don't lose. So it's the same outcome, but can you see how it's a totally different mindset? I hope I don't lose. Basically, I hope I don't fuck up. Right? Yeah. That's what you're thinking. For that interview, I also had nothing to lose. I couldn't believe I got an interview. It was insane that I got an interview. And I just thought, what a bloody amazing opportunity. Look at me at Wembley Stadium. I was late for the interview. I was late. Can you believe it? I had train trouble. Anyway, But I loved it. It was a 3-hour interview and I loved it. And I was their second choice. And they said the reason they didn't get it was because the person that got the job had 25 years experience working in sport. I can't compete with that, can I? And I had so many knockbacks. And every time I got a knockback, I remember, sobbing, crying and saying, I can't do it anymore. I just can't do it. And then you carry on again. And I think, again, I'm lucky that I have this kind of innate positivity. But the key thing is, I would say to anyone listening to this who's going through a tough time at the moment, is it's overwhelm that stops us, right? It's not stress or pressure. Because stress and pressure can be brilliant, can't it? The right kind of stress and pressure is super exciting. It's when it tips into overwhelm. That's when we can't move forward. Okay. And the word whelmed literally means sort of submerged, under, right? So it's like you feel like you're underwater and you can't catch breath. And that's the point where it's the big picture can be terrifying. So if you're just thinking, I'm never going to get a job, I've just applied for, I got 2 rejection letters in a day. It was brutal. And it was those days when the overwhelm meant that I could only see the big picture. I couldn't focus on any small detail. And what kept me going was bringing it back to one thing I can do today. What's the one thing I can do today? And sometimes it was getting in the sea. And there were days when I got in the sea and I remember, because I always swim, I don't just bob about, I swim. And it was like I was swimming in treacle. I had no energy, which is not like me. And I remember putting my head under the water and screaming in the water because no one could hear me. And that was, and screaming with frustration and pain and anger and fucking desperation. And it was so bleak and it's so not me. And then I got out of the water, I went to change it, and it's like, again, presented to me that kind of, okay, I just screamed in the water like a complete mad woman and then get in the changing room, pretend that everything's okay. And it was just on a day-to-day basis, finding one thing I could do so that I kept putting one foot in front of the other. And sometimes it was just one foot. And that's all you need. And there were some days when I didn't go anywhere, and that's okay too. Like, you're allowed to grieve, It's like if you break up with someone, just get back out there. You don't have to. You can just stay at home and cry and feel sad. And crying's really good. I'm very good at crying. I have no problem with crying.
Me, but
Yeah. So, let it out and scream into the water, whatever it takes. Let it out. Allow the grief, allow the pain, and then I'm sorry, I know I do swear too much.
Go for it.
Pick yourself up, right? And carry on. And sometimes, you know what? I can be quite hard on people and say, I know this is hard, but life's hard. So what are you going to do about it, right? You do have some agency. It might feel like, I didn't feel like I had any at that point. I was like, no one's employing me, right? Journalism's dying. I've retrained as a psychologist. I'm bloody good at my job, but building a client base is hard work. That instance, it could feel like, but I still knew where I wanted to be. And you just have to just be brave. And the thing is, with confidence, people think that confidence is a feeling, right? It's not. Sometimes it's an action. So it's moving forward, even though everything doesn't want to, and confidence will then follow. And that is, I think, if you're going to sit and wait for confidence to come, it might never come. What are you going to do? What are you going to miss out on? So it's basically being brave and feeling lost, or that all those feelings of imposter syndrome, all those feelings we can have, is still taking small steps towards where you want to be, and in the belief that confidence will follow. And that is kind of what has happened. I've of course I have days when I still feel like an imposter, but pretty much by taking lots and lots of really small steps and occasionally stopping and having a big fat cry and then more small steps, I have pushed myself towards where I want to be. And I feel like this year that I am now where I should be, and I feel genuinely excited. Of course, I'm going to have days when it all goes wrong, but I feel so excited about what's going to happen next. And that is basically through bloody determination and hard work and carrying on when I feel like shit, you know? And it's the brutal truth is sometimes is that there is no magic wand, you know? There's no self-help book. There's no amount of yoga or mindfulness, you know, or talking therapy that is going to change how you feel. You just have to freaking get on with it. It's brutal, but sometimes it's true.
Do you think then, like, do you think I often think about this, that there's a choice, right? I think can't always, I think especially if we're talking about, you know, struggle, especially, you know, mental health and when you're really struggling with depression and those things, like, we don't necessarily maybe have a choice of how we're feeling, right? But that's the feeling we've got. We can't help sometimes that feeling. Like what often people say, well, you got to be depressed about if things have, for whatever reason. But do you think we all? My belief is that we have a choice how we react to something. Like what's your view on that? Like, do you think that whatever point we're at in life, do we have a choice of how we?
We do, and I feel really cautious in this because I would never want to, you know, dark depression is very different. I do believe that I was depressed this last year. I do believe that, but it was in response to a challenging situation. It wasn't a chemical. There wasn't. Do you know what I mean? Some people who have depression, they're medicated for it, right? I have in the past taken antidepressants. I had postnatal depression with my second child. I have taken antidepressants, and that was because I could not get my head above the parapet. I just couldn't do it. And I took antidepressants and they helped. And I did consider it last year, but I kind of knew I didn't need it. I knew it was just a natural human response to a very challenging situation. And I see it with my clients who talk about, you know, traumatic childhood experiences and certain things. That is why they are where they are today. And what I say to them is a really beautiful Buddhist philosophy, which I love, which is the idea of you can't control being hit by an arrow, right? You can't control it, okay? And that is the arrow of whatever that is, whether it's, you know, this fear or anxiety, or this is the thought that you can't control. It pops up. But what you can control is whether you get hit twice by the same arrow, okay? So the arrow hits you. And what some of us do, we then take that arrow and we repeatedly stab ourselves with that arrow. And that is a choice. It's a choice point. You can go, that hurt, that's painful, but this is how I choose to respond. And I think that there is kind of hope in that, you know, and it can be empowering to think, I know that naturally I'm predisposed to having these thoughts, but I can choose how I respond to that thought. And today I choose to reject that thought and to take this new direction. And it's bloody hard, but you know, there's all neural pathways, and we can rewire our brain. It's hard work, but it can be done. And I think I often use the analogy of, if you think of like a really long grassy meadow, and there's a shortcut right across the middle, right? And everyone takes that shortcut and it gets trampled down. So it's super easy, isn't it? That's just a default. But there might be a better, much nicer path. And initially, you're going to have to tramp down the grass and it'll be harder to get to the end point. But if you do it enough, that will become a new pathway. And so it's, you need to make it habitual on a daily basis to make a choice to think a certain way to create those new neural pathways.
And do you think, like, I've listened to you talk a couple of times, you obviously both have that love for the sea, but you mentioned about even with the horses, like getting up at 6:30, going mucking at it sometimes it's hard. But do you think, like, the way you start your day, like getting in the water at the moment's hard, right? Like, as much as we both love it, it's fucking cold.
Yeah.
Right? We go in,
Yeah.
and you still every day. I don't know about you still every day. You go, here we go then, right? And you get in, and it's cold when you get in, and you start swimming. And you go, but I think for me that, and I'm wondering that even if I do nothing else today, I've done something hard, and that is what can help maybe. But I know when I'm feeling not great, if I can't do that, or have a cold shower or something like that, I've done something hard today, and I'm here and I'm okay in it, and that has certainly helped me. I wonder with you, like it seems like for you, there's that and the horses. There's a couple of things that you go, I'm going to start my day like this. When you're feeling, maybe that helps to get us through.
Yeah, I think it's funny. It's also just about habit, and it is. It's some rituals just of habit. I've done it since I was, I started writing when I was 4. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's such a habit for me, and also I like mornings.
Yeah,
some people are not morning people, so you don't have to be getting out of bed at 6:30 in the morning, getting in the sea, or going out in the dark and the rain. You really don't have to be doing that. That perversely gives me pleasure, not always, but but find your joy, find what it is. And some people are night owls. You don't have to be getting up at the crack of dawn. But I do agree with the idea of it's funny, isn't it? Because when life's hard, the last thing you want to do is something hard.
Yeah, of course.
But actually, it can sometimes be doing something, again, it's within your control. Like, what can you control and what can't you control? And so much of what we do on a daily basis, we get caught up in what we can't control. And it's that feeling of being so disempowered that leads to that feeling of stuckness, because we can't see anything that we can kind of latch onto. But if you create something in your day that you have control over, that you can put everything you've got into it, that will help with your confidence. It really will. But again, it requires a certain degree of energy. And if you're depressed, you do not have the mental capacity to think about, hey, how am I going to challenge myself today? I'm not saying that, but the important thing to do is, and particularly kind of got in my mind right now, is to say that it's on the good days. That's when you've got to, harness it and think, right, how can I prepare next time the black dog come nipping at my heels? What have I already got in place that I know is going to support me in those dark times? And what happens is often that the black dog goes and they're so relieved, they get back into the normal routine. And before they know it, they're not ready for the next time. And it's about really knowing yourself and knowing what you need to do it's self-care, isn't it? And knowing what you need to do to ensure that next time, and if you have got people, if you're a father or a mother or a wife or a sister, you do have a responsibility to those people to put the work in, to show up for them, especially if you've got kids. There is a certain responsibility, and how can I make sure that I'm okay for my kids? And so when you have the good days, that's when you need to be planning. Right? It's a bit like, it's like an evolutionary process, isn't it? It's like make hay while the sun shines, literally. Think of all the things that we would do, if we were connected to the land, how we'd be preparing for the harsh winter ahead, right? And people kind of don't often want to put the work in. You have to put the work in when you're feeling better to prepare for the times when it's going to be hard.
There's so many threads through the whole of the conversation that I want to. A lot of the things you've talked about, that, for example, the small step when we're facing struggles, like all these things that we can start to put into place, right back to the definition of success and values and stuff like that. All of these little things that we're talking about are these things that we can teach young children. Are these skills and tools, and is this something we can teach? And how young can we start to teach them what that means? What's your view on that?
I think it's like anything, isn't it? It's sort of, it needs to be, it's like if they say, right, today we're going to have a lesson on, then it immediately kind of turns them off. It needs to be, I think definitely as a parent, it's leading by example. And I mean, values is such an important thing, and values it's very abstract to kids, right? If you try and talk to them about their values, but the teenagers I work with is having natural conversations with them that work out what is important to them and why they're doing what they do. And I think that's really important. And that can just be, just done daily in the classroom, conversations around what matters to you. And the thing is, we're so put in boxes, aren't we? And the education system is so limiting. And if you don't fit, my daughter's currently going through struggling with A-levels at the moment. It's really challenging. And it's like, if you don't fit the tick box, there's some kind of, you're deemed as a failure, but it's just because A-levels might not suit you, and that's okay. But our education system is so rigid. And I think that what we need to be doing from an early age is encouraging children to be curious, which I think often that's the last thing we do. Curiosity and what is it that ignites you, what sparks you, and teaching in a way that ignites that,
allows
that
them to
passion.
lean into that, right?
Yeah.
Lean into something. You're so right. I know we spoke about it before, but I speak on every episode, I think, about the education system and how broken it is, hence why we're trying to go into schools and teach emotional literacy. Right? I think it's so important. I fundamentally believe so much of what we've spoke about in today's conversation, if you're able to talk to adults about this and teach, and we can give some of these coping mechanisms, some of these skills to young children, the mental health crisis that we're in at the moment, I think that's where we can really start to change. Because we're growing up, I don't know about you, but I grew up not having those skills. So when you face adversity and real struggles and dark times, I didn't have the skills to be able to cope with that. Right? Didn't know how to get out of that, because like you mentioned about, I went up right up until I was 40, probably not really facing much adversity. I had a lovely upbringing and all of them things. But when doubt starts to come in and struggles, and there are many people listening who have felt that, and you feel that struggle, you don't know what the answer is. I didn't know how to cope. I didn't have the skills to be able to articulate that and speak about it and understand what my emotions are doing and why they feel like that. So there's so much for me, that all the stuff you mentioned about AI and the things that actually within the school system we're teaching stuff that is going to be redundant almost.
Yeah. Completely. And I think it's something you were saying about the emotions. I think one of the key things is knowing it's okay. All those things, like it's okay to be angry, it's okay to be sad. And one thing I've noticed as a parent that I do, and I'm trying so hard not to do, is to allow them to be sad, right? Because I can't bear if they're sad.
Yes,
and actually, partly, sometimes it's a bit selfish. It's like it pains me. I remember my daughter once saying to me, "Just let me be sad," because I was trying to fix her, right? She didn't want fixing. She just wanted to be sad. She just let me be sad. She could feel the pressure from me because I kind of couldn't cope with it. I couldn't really cope with it. And I'm the youngest of 6, and my dad left home when I was 9, and my mum had a breakdown, and I think it was pretty volatile. So there was heightened emotions, and I think, but never spoken about, So there's all these emotions, but no way of processing them. And I think that for me, I find when other people are people I care about in a heightened state of anxiety, I desperately want to fix it and put an end to it. And I think that's probably being a witness to my mum having a breakdown. And I probably felt, I was powerless. I was 9, right? And so I desperately feel the need to fix people. And a big learning for me as a psychologist and as a mother and as a girlfriend and as a former wife is it's not my job to fix people. It's not my job. And what's so powerful for our children is for us not to try and fix them, right? Allow them to show up and how they're feeling on that day, right? Which could be, I'm not saying they should be disrespectful mood all the time, but it's like, let them explore what they're feeling and let them work it out and let them realize they can self-soothe. And again, as I think about going back to the babies, that, whole thing of self-soothing, like when a baby's crying, it's quite healthy, you know? It's quite healthy for a baby to cry. It's okay. And so it's okay for our kids to cry. It's okay for our kids to get angry. And my kids see the whole spectrum of emotions from me. And I sometimes feel bad for them seeing me sad. But I always talk to them about it afterwards. Always. They've seen me properly lose my shit. And I always talk to them and say, right, you know, I'm sorry that happened. That's because this, and this. And then we repair. And then they said that they then see me recover. And what I'm hoping in that is saying, you can really feel pretty crappy, let it all out. And then I'm like, you know, whereas, you know, some style of parenting is kind of, is repressing it. Right? As a parent, you feel like you should never really lose your temper, never really cry, right? I mean, I'd love to be the parent that never loses their temper, but as part of who I am, you know, I can, you know, I suppose I'm quite fiery but I think that with that, I never don't hold grudges. You know, I'm good at letting it out, and then let's talk about why I let it out. And for me, that feels healthy, and I think that's a really important lesson for our kids to know, is to allow them to feel all the feels. And I think that traditionally we probably blocked it. And I think schools are getting better. I think they have like worry boxes, you know, and things. And I think schools are getting much, much better at emotional literacy and giving children the confidence to feel, to not be okay.
Honestly, I think that's so amazing. I completely echo and agree with. I always found it difficult with my kids to, when like one of them, and she's so in touch, like so in touch with her emotions. It's incredible, like off the charts. So for a 10-year-old, she lets you know exactly how she feels, and I just find it fascinating. And she would, the other day, she said, "Daddy, I'm just really sad today." And I'm God, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's amazing that you can articulate that. Like,
and also say that's okay.
Yeah, no, exactly
that's
that.
okay.
And I was like, that's okay. Thank you for telling me that. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, amazing. Like, I was blown away. I'm like, at 47, I couldn't do that still. I'm still learning to do that. I'm still learning to articulate that when I'm feeling like, and actually this is the key thing for me. I think it's like you mentioned, like growing up, I don't feel that we had that. It just wasn't a thing, right? You don't talk about your emotions, and it was a different generation and stuff. But now we can, and if we can do that and understand them, and I think for me, I don't know what you think about this, but like it's almost like we've got these positive emotions and like, so you should be happy, you should be this, you should be that, and they're all the emotions that we talk about, and that's how you should feel. And actually, the things like sadness and anger, they've got a negative connotation to them. So we almost try and suppress them and put them away because we don't want to talk about them. So I think it's again trying to change the narrative around so I often say to the kids that all emotions are welcome. Bad behaviour is not welcome.
No,
but
exactly.
All emotions are welcome, right? So if you are angry or you're sad or you're upset or whatever those things are, that's absolutely fine. Being disrespectful or being bad behaviour is not acceptable, but let's understand why you're acting like that because of these feelings.
Exactly.
Right? And I think that's and again, I think the more we speak about it, the more I have these conversations, the more hopefully the work we do going into schools and trying to really encourage this. I don't know. I really feel that the biggest impacts, like we're chatting about, we went on the suicide prevention course, so I'd love to just chat about that in a bit. But like how we really impacted that suicide rate is starting young, giving kids these skills to articulate and have these type of conversations that are so normalised that.
Yeah, and you know, I think it's so important by like, so your daughter saying, "I feel really sad today," is that, yes, thank you for sharing that with me. That's amazing. And I suppose you could at that point say, "Do you want to talk about it?" You know, she might not want to talk about it. Did she want to talk about it? Was there anything to talk about?
We did actually go in, and she did tell me why she was feeling sad. It started out with going, "I just don't know. I just feel really sad." Okay, that's fine then. That's fine. And then we delved on a little bit later, and we found out a little bit. But so I think it's just create. I think for me, even what I'm learning in the men's spaces I'm holding, all the other stuff, is creating space. It's creating different spaces.
Yeah.
Like, even with us having a conversation now and sharing some stuff, like, it's just creating different environments and different spaces where it's okay to talk and share as openly, vulnerably, and honestly as we want to, right?
Yeah.
We feel safe to. I think that's the thing. If we can create those safe spaces to be able to do that, I think that makes a difference.
And another thing's really nice to think about is that because there's this idea that, again, because social media doesn't help, like, let's face it, if we talked before that you go on LinkedIn and it's everyone living their best life, or, whatever, Instagram, whatever your social media of choice is, and is basically, we live our lives in thirds, which is feeling good, feeling crap, and feeling, okay? And most of us, if you allow yourself that, is today I might feel, right? Tomorrow I might feel good, I might feel bad. And the whole point is it's constantly changing. It's like weather in the sky. It's like the sky never gets too full of weather, right? There's always room for more weather, isn't there? And the weather, although it's been just wet and wet and wet, but there was a time, do you remember recently, when one day it'd be blue sky and then it'd be wet? It's constantly changing. And the sky never goes, I'm full of weather, I can't. Do you know what I mean? It's like we have capacity for all sorts of emotions and they will all pass, so good and bad. And so what, again, is really important is for our kids to know is don't put too much emphasis on the importance of feeling confident or happy or all those things, because do you know what? It's going to pass. If you're feeling brilliant today, I don't want to burst that bubble, but you might not feel like that tomorrow. And what are you going to do about it then? And that the whole point is it's giving them capacity to still be able to get on and do the things that matter to them, even on the days when they're feeling crappy, because knowing it's going to pass. And talking about, again, I never want to trivialize. I have personal experience. For my ex-husband, his brother and his dad killed himself. And I was with my then boyfriend when his brother killed himself. And he always said, as long as Mark's around, I'm okay, right? As long as Mark's around, because his dad died when he was 6. And he was always say, as long as I've still got Mark. And then Mark killed himself. And I'm trying to think of the thread now. Sorry, it's kind of slightly throwing me to bringing that up. But that's what I was going to say, okay, is that no matter how dark we're feeling, it will pass. I'm sure there will be examples. There aren't that many people, no matter how dark that depression is, that will stay in that dark depression. Inevitably, it will pass. And I know that I remember when Mark was really bad, and we were all aware of it. And I was in my 20s. I was terrified of it. I was terrified of being around him. His energy was so off kilter. He wasn't well, and none of us knew what to say to him. None of us. And going on that suicide prevention course, it really gave you the tools, didn't it?
Yeah.
To say, and to be brave enough to say, are you okay? And then to say, are you thinking about taking your life? Are you thinking about killing yourself? Because it's funny, isn't it? I know that on that course we spoke about, we worry that we're going to put the idea of suicide into someone's head by mentioning suicide. You're not going to give someone the idea of killing themselves, right? If they've thought about it, they thought about it. But for my experience was, with my ex-husband, when his dad killed himself, it was totally no one even spoke about it. He wasn't allowed to the funeral. It was completely, we must never talk about it. It says a lot of shame around it. Yeah. And then with his brother, we didn't know what to say or how to be around him. And he definitely would have felt like there is no escape. It's not going to get better. And the tragic thing is, it always gets better. It's going to get hard again. But I can guarantee there will be something that makes your life worth living. And, and it's so tragic that we can try and get to people in that most vulnerable moment and just give them a little bit of space, a tiny bit of breathing space to imagine the possibility that they might still be alive the next day. That might be all they need. And that is, I think, is what's really lacking. I think people are still so scared around those conversations. And, we talk about a lot of conversations we have around mental health. It's fairly, even what I do, it's high performance, I'm not a clinical psychologist. I'm not dealing with people with suicidal ideation. I'm dealing with people that might be struggling in the workplace. Doesn't mean it does matter, but it's very, very different from clinical psychology. But it's by having these conversations in every aspect, in every space, that then will hopefully normalize it. But it is frightening, isn't it?
It is, and I think like one of the things I take from what you just said, and even from the course, is that if we do have these conversations, and you give someone just that, the word that always comes up is hope, right?
Yeah.
And it might be the smallest little piece of hope, but that might just be enough to get someone to the next day.
It is,
right?
yeah.
And maybe that's all it takes, because like one of the phrase I use all the time, and I think this too shall pass. I live by that. It's a mantra of mine that's helped me get through some dark times. But what the realization or the acceptance for me was understanding that this too shall pass is at every level, right? So when you're having it off and things are great, actually just taking a moment to appreciate it and be grateful for them times, but recognise that this is going to pass as well, and I'm probably going to feel at some point something's going to happen, and I will feel shit again. And that's okay, because then when you're in that, you go, this too shall pass as well, and I'll be up again. And that's life. I think that's, for me, that is life. Right? That is what it's all about. If we can, I think you're right in what you said. If we can just hold on to that no matter how dark it is, and how bad it is, and how shit you feel, it will. This, like the clouds, like the weather.
Chink of sun. You need one little chink of sunlight.
Yeah.
It's all you need, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think that, from my sort of lived experience for people taking their own lives, is that it was their only way out. That's what they felt, that was their only way out, and that was their choice. And you have to respect them for wanting to take that choice. But it's obviously heartbreaking for those left behind who just wishes they could have shown them that there is, And now I think he's got niece and nephew, my two kids, lost their uncle, and you just think the pleasure he could have got. But it's the whole thing about that course was it's about being very present in the moment, not thinking about what's going to happen next week or next month or anything. It's just, even in the next hour, how can we keep you safe? What can we do to keep you safe for the next hour? Because it does pass. And if you can keep them safe for the next hour, that might keep them safe until the next day. And by which time they might have made a phone call to someone that might keep them safe for the next week, and on it goes. And so it's really, really important for part of my work and as just as a human being is to the realization, as you say, that good and bad, it will pass.
And I think even just as you highlighted there, even the hour, the day, back to even the stuff that you talked about from your own mindset point of view, and it's just those little small steps, right? Just something very small today that I can do that will help me get through and get up and get on to that next thing. And I think that thread that's come through for me from the whole conversation is that, right? And I think if any listeners listening are struggling, you just go, just find that little small thing, whatever that is, that little small thing today that you can do that will just move it.
It's the smallest thing I can do today that has the biggest impact. And sometimes when we're in a state of overwhelm, it's very, very hard to see it. But fear doesn't like specificity. I can't say that word.
Specify.
No, I'm going to say specificity. Literally can't say it. Specificity.
Okay.
Is that it? I don't know. Being specific.
Being specific. We'll go with that. Let's go with that.
Let's give me my head in. It doesn't like specific things. There you go. It's better, isn't it? It doesn't like specific things. So it's like a bit like it's like a plate of spaghetti, right? If you've got a plate of spaghetti and everything's jumbled up, there's no way you can see where one bit of spaghetti ends and where it finishes. It's just a big plate of spaghetti. And if you were to take one bit out, right, one bit, all of a sudden there's the beginning and there's the end, okay? And that's kind of what I had a client's conversation with her yesterday, exactly that. She's in a moment of, she's overwhelmed. And I say it's the word overwhelm. Stress is fine, pressure's fine, it's overwhelm. That's when and then continuation of overwhelm, we become burnt out, right? And she is overwhelmed at the moment. And I was saying, okay, today, you're going to pull out one strand of spaghetti.
Love that.
And what's that going to be? And it could have been, she had one call to make. That was it, one call. I said, right, make that call. Okay, that was right. Tomorrow, what's the next, right? What little bit of spaghetti you're going to take out? And it's tiny habits, right? Write them on a sheet. Just write down today my tiny thing I'm going to do. One little bit of spaghetti I'm going to take out and manage that, right? And before you know what it's like if you eat a plate of spaghetti, all of a sudden you can actually see the individual strands, can't you? So it's just picking out one at a time. That's your task for the day. And the next day, that's your task for the day. And you will eventually, it will create clarity. And like I say, fear doesn't like specific things. I'm not going to try and say the other word because I can't say it. And by being super specific, that's basically, there's neuroscience behind it, right? Your prefrontal cortex, okay, that's like the CEO, okay, that's who's in charge. And all the time you're operating under a state of fear, that part of the brain is totally disconnected. It's not in charge, right? Your amygdala, okay, it's the fear part of your brain, takes over. And what happens if that takes over? You can't make any rational decisions. Dave, you ever had that thing where you're super aroused, as in, you might be really angry or really anxious. You can't make any good decisions when you're in that state. And that's the thing is, like as parents, we talk about having time out. Often it's time out for the parents, right? It's not just for the kid to calm down. It's for us to calm down. Because if you're trying to parent, when you're angry, you're not going to do or say anything of any use. And in the workplace, you get an email, right? And you feel like, kind of indignation. And if you fire off a response, chance of you liking that response in an hour's time, it's pretty slim, right? The amygdala's job is to keep you alive. That's all it is, right? It's survival mode. And we don't want to be operating from a place of survival. It's that threat mindset again. We want to be in a challenge mindset where we're like, okay, that's challenging. I've got the tools. I know what I'm doing. This is the decision I'm going to make. And we can't do that from a place of fear. And by being super specific about the task at hand, your prefrontal cortex is engaged, okay? And that's when you can make smart decisions.
So much. I want to talk about a couple of things. One, firstly, I want to go back with the suicide prevention training that was on. I want to give a shout out to Rose because it was amazing.
Yeah.
Right?
And Nick.
And Nick, of course, yeah. Both of them brilliant, right? And I just think the course in itself is probably one of the most informative things I've done over them 2 days. It was amazing. We had a great group as well. But what's the biggest thing you took out? What was the biggest thing you took away from it?
I think it's about being brave to the conversation, and we kind of make assumptions about people, and often even the question, are you all right, mate? Like, do people really give a shit? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a rhetorical question, isn't it, often? Isn't it?
Yeah.
And actually, how are you really feeling today? Like, let's really check in with how you're feeling. And I think often we ask how people are, and we don't really want to hear the answer. We might not even have time for the answer. And I think it's about being brave and asking the questions and kind of giving people, again, is the space, isn't it? It's giving them space.
Yeah. I think I've a couple of things. Like one, for me, like the "you're right, mate" thing is that because it's such a flippant comment.
Yeah.
I guess in my head, I'm trying to put meaning behind that, so that when someone asks it, they actually go, "Oh, they're checking in on me." But I think like one of the things I take from what you said as well, and me and you are probably quite similar. It's actually, and what I took away from it was that I felt like I always have to fix something, and actually someone telling me that they're struggling, I haven't got and I might not be able to fix this problem, but I can just sit there with you and listen, and it may be that actually the smallest step is just for me to listen, and I'm not going to fix everything for you, but can I keep you safe? And that's that was something I took away from it, was not a necessity to fix someone. I'm not going to fix everyone's problem, but I'm just can be here to listen. That's hard, I think, when we're programmed or trained the way we are. But.
No, totally. And it's kind of nature nurture thing, isn't it, to be a fixer?
Yeah.
And it definitely, and again, I've learned massively from my job is it isn't my job. There's no way it's my job. Doesn't mean I can't have, someone's offer opinions or challenge people, but it's not my job to fix them. And because inevitably, unless they want to do it themselves, but like with that, if you're having a conversation with someone who's thinking of suicide, you can't stop them, right? You can't fix them. They have to make the decision to go, actually, at this moment in time, I want to stay safe. How can you help me? They have to, they have to meet you somewhere, don't they? And that is, again, it's quite scary. I think that was one thing we did when we did the role play. Of kind of waiting for them, trying to guide them with the questions, but ultimately waiting for them to be open enough to say, okay, how can I help? What can we do right now? Because you feel like you're going to somehow push them or something, but do you know what I mean? It's them having to be open and wanting help. And that's quite a scary thing for if you're a fixer. Yeah.
And I think it's just, like you said, I think the more of these programs are, the more people get trained in this way, the more, like you said, we do it within a space where we want to help people, we want to get better understanding of it, and obviously, like you said, your own sort of lived experience with it as well, just getting that understanding. But actually, again, it's back to the skills and tools that we can give ourselves as a human race to be able to help and support as much as possible. And I know that obviously suicide prevention is going to be starting to be taught in schools, I think, which is really healthy.
Yeah.
Because I think there's so much shame around suicide. There's so many stigmas around it that even the word it evokes emotion, and these people it's a bit of a taboo, so we can't turn on. I think the more we normalise, the more we talk about. I think, like, again, for me, one of the things that come out was the fact that talking about suicide is not going to put that idea, if someone's got suicidal ideation, it's not going to put that idea in their head. They're not going to go, oh, I wasn't thinking about that. Now you've mentioned it, I'm going to,
exactly.
You know what I mean? I think, again, that's the myths that need to be, I think the more conversations we have around it, those myths get
I mean, even with my kids, it was like, I know with my ex-husband, he really wasn't sure at what point to tell them. They've kind of had the sense of he did have a brother, never spoke about how he died. And then I still today don't know if he's told them that their granddad also killed himself. I don't know if he's told them that. And that's quite heavy. It's heavy, isn't it? For two kids to know their dad and their uncle killed themselves. And again, you think, oh my God, what if I tell them that? They're going to think it's an option. But it's, you're not going to put the idea in their head, but you need to have, just have conversations around it. And make them feel like it's okay to talk about. And if it's okay to talk about, then talk about the feelings, it's I think it's particularly challenging when you're dealing with kids around that, of the whole taboo around it is
I think what another thing you mentioned again about feeling different feelings and emotions, and I love the metaphor of the ball under the water, and because that's it. But I think, again, if we can again start to talk about them, not to suppress them, because I think, like, for me, I felt, especially over the last couple of years, especially last year, I've done I think I mentioned to you before, I've done that breath work, and I felt I have these type of conversations a lot. I felt like I cry a bit. I'm quite in touch with my emotions, and I realised how many emotions I'd suppressed over the years. Like, do you, especially, I guess, clients and stuff you deal with, do you feel that as an issue, sometimes a barrier, that people, where they suppress emotion, that is an issue?
Yeah, it is. And the thing is, you can't push it. You can't. And I've got a client at the moment, and I know that there's so much more going on, and she very intentionally keeps it very surface. And it's about building trust. And sometimes all they want to do is talk. And I've had some sessions, I think, man, what do they get out of that? Like, they're paying me for that. And don't undermine the importance of just offering someone, it's an hour of me listening and me empathizing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's really powerful. And again, I feel like if I'm not fixing them or coming up with solutions, and that's one reason why I became a sports psychologist. I love the fact that it's super solution driven. There are, like I said, very measurable. There's KPIs, isn't there? It's like, if you do this and we do that, maybe in 6 months' time, you'll qualify for that competition or something. I loved how sort of measurable it was. It's very, very scientific, which suits my brain. But then the realization is, which kind of loved about it is they come to me with a sporting problem, and you realize it's not about the sport. It's something so much deeper than that. And there's a reason, why are they feeling anxious? And it can take a lot, especially with teenagers, a long time to build trust for them to really talk about what's going on. Like, why do they care about that PB? Why does it matter? Like, why does a 15-year-old, do you know what I mean? Why do they care so passionately about a PB? Or, I know for myself, because I'm very competitive. So it's like something I can relate to. And again, and I kind of know I'm the youngest of 6, it's like, I had to be heard and seen. So if I'm
fighting for that.
Like if I'm the fastest or the smartest or the funniest or the, I'll get noticed, and it's like, mom, do you know what I mean? And like, there was certain things I did that definitely impressed her. I was on TV for a bit. My mum loved that, So it's like, oh, that's affirmation, So it's like, what is the driving force behind that need to be seen and to win? What's going on there? And so we start off with, and I have to really, especially with teenagers, it really takes a long time for them to say, I want you to move away from the PB, right? We're not going to talk about the PB, right? We're just going to be talking about what is the process that you need to get to that. So it's all about process that leads to performance. And I never say, I'm never going to deny you that personal best, because you're an athlete, right? And it's like saying to an athlete, oh, don't worry about the outcome. You're not going to say to a football team, it doesn't matter if you win or lose. That's bullshit. We know it matters, but what matters is the process. How you show up day to day. What are you doing in your day to day that is going to get you towards that performance, that's going to get you to that outcome? And so it's like I say, write down where you want to be and then chuck it away. And let's not talk about that ever again. And we're going to work backwards. What do you need to do right now that's going to lead you to that distant point right in the future? And with teenagers, it's harder to do than with adults because they're so hung up on the outcome. And it takes a long time to build their trust, to really get them to talk about what's going on underneath, and then to work out their values and what matters to them.
Because it's that. This is the thing I'm learning. It's that inner work, right? Like a lot of the stuff you're talking about is the trophy and the stuff at the end is the external validation. Of course, it's something to strive for and stuff, but it's still an external. I look at what I've achieved. Yeah. Right? But actually, I love what you're talking about understanding the process and understanding what's driving that will to succeed, and it often comes back to that inner work, and again back to those values and understanding who we are. Yeah, because we even talk this in the recent thing within the schools around like it is about. It's great to win. It's like we've done this thing where they won some sweets, where we've done a little game and they won some, and someone won some, and one of the kids actually done a thing afterwards and shared with us that it was just really fun to do. And it was the process. It wasn't about winning the sweets. The sweets didn't really matter. It was great because we had loads of fun doing it. Brilliant. Like that's what we want to get across. And with it's like, why are you doing this process in the first place? I remember I really relate to this. You'd probably I've done an episode with Leon Taylor, who was Olympic silver medalist, and he talks so much about similar to along the lines of you. Like I think he got a coach or sports psychologist when he really struggled, went through after they didn't win an Olympic medal, and it was another 4 years to go back, and he was really down and depressed, and he went into a downward spiral, and he talked about it. He said, and one day he was just sitting there crying, and his coach said to him, why do you do this? Because I love it. I love diving. You don't look like now you're not doing it. So and he goes, it just switched for me because it was about then it was about the process. And why am I doing this? Because I love it. I love diving. I loved it, and that started to help. And then when he stood on the end of that ball, they did end up going and winning the silver medal. It wasn't. He played that so much over intensity, but it wasn't about that outcome. It was about all of it to get.
Yeah, and exactly. It's the moment you take the pressure off it. Because you can't control the outcome. And if all you're doing is thinking about, I've got to win, or worse, mustn't lose. It does take away the joy. And it's funny, we call it, playing football. It's meant to be play, but we lose that. So kids start out playing sport, right, for fun, and then suddenly they get good at it, and then they realize then there's all this pressure comes in. And again, it's extrinsic versus intrinsic motivation. And a lot of athletes, I don't say the majority, it's extrinsic motivation. It is the medal. It's likes on social media, it's all extrinsic, and you've got to think, why am I doing this? And unless you have intrinsic motivation, you're playing the long game, really.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it's all about playing the long game. And what's in it for me? And that's definitely for me, that really worked, rather than thinking about where I placed at a competition was all the things that I loved. I love learning. I love being challenged. I love being out in the countryside. I love my horse. There were so many things about it that I could find that bring me joy, which ultimately often still did lead to me doing well, but for trying to forget about that and think about right now and being super present.
Amazing. I love it. I think listening to this and going back, I can't wait to go back and listen as well. And I think identifying those values and that intrinsic thing for young kids starting at a young age is going to help so much for life in general, right? Whether it is high performance, whether it's focusing on something, or just day-to-day life, right? If we can look inward instead of, because we live in that society, we live in a world that's so external.
Yeah.
Can look in, if we can do that. Well, I'll be honest, I've probably only just started the whole podcast has been an exploration of my inner work, I guess, and last year doing the breathwork, really trying to actually do some work on myself. And I think and it's opened a whole.
What are your values, would you say?
Curiosity, massively. I think one of the reasons. But curiosity, kindness, integrity, enthusiasm. I think they're.
You said about authenticity, didn't you?
Massively, yeah. Like authenticity lives. Like it's become one of the 5 pillars, right? And everything, all of those things I've just mentioned, come back to probably. I've got to live in alignment with my values. I've got to live an authentic life. Of that, I referenced the Bronnie Ware book, The 5 Regrets of the Diet, often on the podcast, because she interviewed loads of people on their deathbed, and the biggest regret was I've not lived a life true to myself.
Yeah, and it's funny, we talk about this feeling of if you're feeling incongruent, and basically if you're not living in alignment with your values, sometimes you get that feeling. It's a bit like when I go to a social engagement and I'm feeling uncomfortable and I think I might have to drink to go. Sometimes it's because I might not be living in accordance with my values, right? I might be in a group of people that make me feel uncomfortable for whatever reason. And I know that, again, to use the word authenticity, if people aren't being authentic, do you know what I mean? If you've been in a social situation, it all feels a bit weird and a bit fake.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, this is just all bullshit.
Yeah.
Like the small talk we're having, what does it even mean? Do you know what I mean? And I want to do big talk.
Yeah,
I don't want to do small talk.
Yeah.
And so I get to a party and there's a bloody small talk about I don't really care. Yeah. And I dance a lot. I love dancing. And often I'll just go, and if there's good music, I'll just dance. And that is a way of me avoiding the flipping small talk, right? I'll just literally, I can all dance all evening. Yeah. And actually the love thing is I know I don't need to drink to dance. And but it's kind of, it's that uncomfortable feeling you get in the pit in your stomach, you don't know why. And if you take a step back and you think, hang on a minute, that's because this isn't in line with my values. If I'm with people I feel genuinely comfortable with, there's none of that discomfort, and it's sometimes we don't even know, we just feel uncomfortable. Out in the workplace, feel uncomfortable, might be a conversation we've had with a colleague, something going on. If you're feeling uncomfortable, have a think about it. And quite more often than not, it's because it's not in alignment with your values. You're doing something that is not congruent with the way you want to live your life. And a lot of people go through their whole lives with that feeling. That they might be earning good money, they might look like they're successful, but inside something is just off kilter. And at that point, it takes real bravery to really step back, because if you're earning a decent salary, etc., and you've got responsibilities, it's really hard. But I would say in that instance, being practical is find ways that you can live out your values in other aspects of your life. There's always things that you can do in other aspects of your life that can fulfill you. That means that, again, it's like about the daily glimmers, as if your job, it doesn't massively fulfill you. We can't all have a job that fulfills us. We're lucky that we can. We've always talked about the downside is you don't always haven't got regular cash, right? But, if your work doesn't give you that, then find something that does. And then it just makes everything, I think it does, it allows you to fulfill yourself and therefore be better in other aspects of your life.
What a wonderful conversation. You honestly, I was so much. I often say to people like, well, I love. This is my favourite part of it, but the second part is going back and listening to it again and just taking out. There's so many amazing things that to come out of it. Thank you so much for.
I've really loved it.
It's been great. Just as we're coming towards the end, we've got our tradition that we finish with, but. What do you, if you could go back to a young Charlotte and talk to what advice would you give her? What do you wish she'd known back then?
Oh man, God, I really, literally, I feel like I've had this conversation before. I think with sort of, because the thing is, do you know what's really interesting is that most of us are still fucking up, aren't we?
Yeah, 100%.
You know? So people sort of say, you know, what sage advice would you give your younger self? I could definitely give advice, but I wouldn't want that person to not fuck up, you know, because that's what's got me where I am now. And so I definitely don't believe in regrets. I really don't believe in regrets. But I suppose, okay, I think maybe, I'm trying to think about, it's the emotional regulation, I think, maybe. And I think that I didn't know, I wasn't ever taught how to regulate. There were lots of big emotions in my house that were never discussed. And so I think that what would be incredibly useful and what I try to give my kids now is to know that big emotions are nothing to be afraid of. Because they were quite scary in my house. Big emotions were scary. They were, because it was very volatile. So I think it would be great to give her, I don't know, maybe more safety and protection from those extreme emotions of others, but then being able to process them myself. But I'm trying to think how I could have, because inevitably, if you're just in an environment, that's your environment, right? And if there's lots of chaos around you, it's just hard, right? It's hard. And I guess I'm trying to think what would have made difference in my life then. I mean, I'm very lucky. I'm one of 6. We're a very, very close family. So I had that. But we didn't really talk about emotions. We didn't. And we still don't now, really. We're really close. We are really close, but we don't really. I'm the most open about my emotions out of all my family. So, yeah, I feel like I haven't asked that question at all. But I suppose I just would want her to know that big emotions, they can be scary, they're actually, it's okay.
Yeah. You know what? If someone was to ask me, I think I'd be similar with that, because I've got an amazing family and we're really close, but never, just things weren't discussed, and still probably not now. Just still sit in a room and be things going on with don't maybe as open as I am with, you know, other people and on the podcast and all, you know, to the public. So it's just, I think it is. It's just, yeah, I'd be the same. But, well, look, we've got a closing tradition on this podcast. Yeah. This is my storytelling card. So you're going to come to one of our top table events. You'll love him. So you're going to choose a card, any card, and then pass it back to me. And I'll pass it and I'll read it back.
So I might read it?
No, I'm going to read it back.
I didn't see it.
It's fine. I'm going to read it to you. So, when have you chosen connection over being right?
Oh, man, that's a good one. God, that's a really good one, because I can be quite dogmatic, and I mean, with my kids, I think with my kids, I think I'm still a skill I'm learning in adult relationships, I would say. But with my kids, 100% is, you know, it doesn't matter. Do you know what I mean? Like, we can see the bigger picture, can't we? And we can know that we're right, and we can see them making mistakes. But what's more important is that I've got their back, and that they trust me and they feel safe with me. That, man, there is no space for being judgmental, you know?
Yeah, agree.
And so I think that with my kids, I choose connection, not every time, because again, I'm human and I fuck up. And sometimes I can't help but, really? Do you think you should be doing that? I can't help it sometimes. But on the whole, I choose connection with my kids because they don't really, who's wrong or right. They have to learn themselves. But connection as a parent is everything. It's so important.
Brilliant way to finish. Thank you so much. Honestly, it's been such a wonderful conversation. I could sit and speak to you for hours, and we'll go for a sea dip and a coffee and another time, and we'll continue another wonderful conversation. So thank you for your time today. It's been
I've loved
amazing.
it. Thank you so much, Sam. Thank you.
And as they say, here's a wrap.